Hey, it's me, Big P, and I'm here to show you kind of, let's say, 1.0 version of the Volatile Dead caster build. It's really like Incinerate Volatile Dead. It's kind of based completely around like corpse generation and consumption, something that wasn't really available, and it's really exciting to try and like scale the new necro nodes that we have here, that we've gone into. I guess Plaguebringer and Corpse Pack, these are really the ones we want to focus on, although Essence Glutton has also been very helpful. We did this one third. This is just for speed and damage. The build is a little bit complicated in what... Ooh, there's a map in here already. What? Oops. The build is a little bit complicated in terms of what exactly is going on, but when it all comes together, it's just basically a one-button build that can map pretty nicely and almost trivializes the league content. I'm going to go over everything that's happening. I'll mention some things while I'm going through this map. I just want you to see how it kind of ramps up and gets fast and it's fun. Chateau is a tier 7 map. Nothing too crazy in terms of map modifiers. This is just kind of the strongest content I've had. I've turned a corner with the build where now any white map is pretty much, it's really trivial to me. Let's see, what to mention. I don't know, it's so there's a bit of, you can see, we have a lot of mitigation. We're mind over matter. We have a decent amount of energy shield that we're not, we're not using blood rage or anything like that. We're not an attack build. What about the boss here? Let's get some single target damage in. Single target's decent. Something to note is that the build, I called it a Volatile Dead build. It really is just like a caster build that works, I would say, not completely equally off both, but a full, maxed out Incinerate, that's a non-negligible, thing. The final hit of that is pretty wild. It can do huge amounts of damage, and, standing still with a build, if you're gonna do it, you need to make it feel good and worth it to do. That's why a lot of people, although this build becomes something of like an auto bomber. Now here's the best part of the build, I think, for this league in particular. I'm really not gonna have to do okay, this one's grayed out for some reason. So we're just gonna set up, I like to max out an Empower Tower, and we're just gonna hang out. One just spawned here in the back. This is a pretty complex one where they're coming from a lot of different angles. By the way, Blight is one of the coolest and most interesting and complex leagues I've played just ever. It's insane to think about how the content will scale up and how much fun I'm having just like at this lower level when I'm not casting my spell. So one thing alright, this is getting crazy. But now we will empower the self. I really like these self-empower towers, because as I said, the build has turned a corner and it's very tough now. And I think that's it. There you go. 6 lanes. That's my first 6 laner I did, and there was, a little bit of a kind of rocky bit there, but overall this build has really ended up feeling amazing for this league in particular, and just mapping in league starting generally. That might even be better than what I'm using right now. The gear that I've used, the Tabula is pretty lucky, and I am using Scold's Birtle to kind of automate some corpse generation, but it's not necessary. I was using both Self-Cast Unearth and Desecrate Totems while I was leveling, and the build was pretty much, it was the same. It's just very smooth now as a mapper. Now that I have a Scold's Birtle and a Desecrate cast when damage taken set up, 1 monster left, Volatile Dead. The AI has been nerfed or adjusted or tweaked in some way that makes it kind of buzz around and not be... It's still very good for clear, but I don't know. I tried a bit of Cremation. Cremation might actually be better than Volatile Dead for like single target, but you can't really stack them up. You can only have a max of 3 or like 4 geysers, I think, maybe somehow with Cremation, whereas Volatile Dead, I mean, you just make a bunch. And so you see I'm taking the... I'm actually not Eldritch Battery. Let's go into the tree, because there's a lot to go into. So let's go into the tree. So between Plaguesbringer and Corpse Pact, something that one of the challenges of the build was making sure that you always have corpses nearby and you're always consuming them. This is you want to do both of them and kind of balance them. It doesn't have to be like an exact science, like 1-to-1 or whatever. So something that you really want to do. The main interaction here, I would say, is Scold's Birtle, where your skills deal you 400% of mana spent on skill mana as physical damage to yourself. That's why, as I'm casting, I'm taking energy shield damage there, and you hear it, and there's the Desecrate that I just cast. So that Desecrate is level 1 cast when damage taken, level 7 Desecrate, and a Spell Cascade, which actually isn't really necessary. Spell Cascade immediately gets you, like, it over, whatchamacallit, it's 5 per cast, unless it changes the normal bodies. A normal cast is 5 corpses, and 10 is the max allowed. So Spell Cascade makes 15, so I guess the other ones just don't happen. It gets rid of them or whatever. But we're consuming corpses between both the Volatile Dead that's being cast in our cast while channeling and the Bubonic Trail. It doesn't just destroy the corpse. As you can see, actually, let's make some unearthed corpses here. And just so you can see, so look at my attacks per second here. As I walk around, it's slowly going up and stacking, and that's as a result of Corpse Pact. 2% increased attack and cast speed for each corpse consumed recently. So this is kind of just automated happening as you're playing. It's even possible to get a setup like this without Scold's Birtle, although I wouldn't recommend it, because then you're very much relying on actually taking damage from like monsters. At level 1, 528 damage, it's pretty much any mob hitting you can set this off, and then set off like a sort of chain reaction, because corpses around you that are created from killing stuff, that's also relevant. But another big challenge of the build was when I was doing totems as my corpse generation. I had Desecrate totems and a self-cast Unearth. I would have to self-cast that Unearth in order to get those last 2 mods here on Corpse Pact to work, because corpses you spawn are different from corpses that totems spawn. So now, enemies near corpses you have spawned recently are chilled and shocked. That's like happening all the time. You basically just get free chill and shock on your build as you shield charge into a pack, or, you know, and then you cast for a little bit, any amount of damage. When those Desecrate corpses come out from the cast when damage taken, chilled and shocked, it's amazing. Really insane. So the Corpse Pact is really bringing the build up to a level. It's so much so that you really need to build completely around it to get, you know, just really max out and push the Necromancer caster archetype as, you know, as it's supposed to be. And it's working out really well. Now that I have everything, it was a bit of a rocky leveling. I swapped between things like Eldritch Battery and Ghost Reaver. I did swap back into Ghost Reaver. I had Wicked Ward, but Wicked Ward doesn't work if I'm casting. It would interrupt the energy shield recharge with any instance of damage that's being taken here. That interrupts it. So it's actually better to go for Ghost Reaver. I have a little bit of energy of Leech here. You don't even need to get here. I was more into Leech in the previous version of the build. I am going to have this updated tree for you guys, although it's not so different. It kind of reaches into the same areas. One thing I failed to mention in the starter build before was the Spiritual Aid is just huge to get, because there's so many like little instances of minion damage like that are just like around, you know, and they're great. So when we spec'd out of Eldritch Battery and went into just more standard mana-based caster and using Mind Over Matter, something like Essence Glutton actually allows us to reserve a decent bit, almost fully reserve our mana, but still, you know, take advantage fully of this node in a way that's really nice. There's, you saw I took a little bit of damage in that map, and normally on a Mind Over Matter build with this much low mana, you know, that mana goes down quickly, and then you can't like cast, you get stuck, you can't use your movement skill. Essence Glutton again, the cast when damage taken and the corpses being around us, it's such a well-rounded, like the build is just so, it's so central to the build. It's offensive and defensive in this way where we're, let me move this a bit so you can actually read it. It's behind my camera. So you get increased maximum mana. That's beautiful. For each nearby corpse, you and nearby allies regenerate 2% of energy shield per second. So that's pretty much always on. You have the desecrate coming out and immediately goes up. So that's 10 stacks. It'll actually show you 10 stacks. So let's try and, come on. See, 10 stacks of Essence Glutton immediately. And you can even consume some, and you do consume 3 corpses at once, so it goes down. But again, this is a sort of thing that's automated while mapping. You don't have to worry about it. You just will get this regen. That's for energy shield, and you also get up to 50 mana regen per second, which is pretty crazy. I was using a mana flask before because there are some nice affixes and stuff on it, but you don't need to. I thought you would, GGG is threatening us with like making us, fit mana regeneration into our build, and this node is pretty much all I had to do to take care of it. I was spec'd into some mana stuff here, or technically there's a bit of mana here and here, but we're going there for life anyway. Regenerate 8% of energy shield over 2 seconds when you consume a corpse. This build is always consuming corpses. We are always generating the corpses, consuming the corpses, and it's it's just pretty fun to just play a build that's so simple. It's got a lot of little moving parts, but it's just powerful. It's just crazy. So looking forward with the build, I have my Uber Lab. I'm thinking that Mistress of Sacrifice could be something that I also automate as a cast when damage taken. The offering skill is now having only 25% reduced effect. It's not really that amazing, but you don't really have that much better options. Commander of Darkness could be cool if you're doing like SSF and like really stretched for gear. My gear is pretty crappy, but I am res capped right now for maps. I've just been kind of mapping, pushing into yellow maps as much as I can. Mistress of Sacrifice, I am leveling Spirit Offering. Pretty much the only thing that's going to be relevant for Spirit Offering. I mean, the Elemental Resistances is nice for overcapping, but gain 4% of maximum life as extra maximum energy shield for each corpse consumed seems pretty weird and might help us like kind of get some like pseudo tankiness from just consuming. I'm just interested to see how it works. I'm going to throw it in instead of the spell cascade here and bring it down to a level where, it can be cast. Where is it exactly? So I'm leveling one just because I'm gonna have a self-cast option of it available. Maybe that's like really strong, but we're gonna see if it can happen. I didn't go D&D, my bad. So let's go over the gem slots and specific gear real quick. I don't want this to be too long, but it kind of has to be. I've had a lot of thoughts about the Blight League and maxing a caster Necromancer, but anyway. So Tabula Rasa. Fortunately for me, this dropped in Act 2 randomly. Unfortunately for everybody else, I kind of really wanted to scale this build and show people that, like, oh, you only nearly needed the 4-link of Incinerate, Cast while channeling Volatile Dead, and Combustion, which I still think is totally doable for a leveling setup. It's very, it's they just work together in a way that's, it just makes a lot of sense. Just getting that more fire damage, and you pretty much always have the fire resistance proccing off combustions. There's so many hits, and Incinerate itself, a lot of damage there. The last two are Controlled Destruction and Concentrated Effect because we still are Elemental Overload. I do think I'll eventually be able to go full crit. That'll be a bit of a respec, but for right now, we're totally fine. Elemental Overload is pretty much always up. So you don't need the 6-link. We're just using this right now. The area, we have spec into a bit of area on the tree, and you also get 30% increased area of effect pretty much always. I think that the best thing about this build, the early iterations of it before I automated that corpse generation with Desecrate, was that this was only sometimes on, and I still do have a self-cast Unearth, just when I need to poke, and just if a boss is there and you want to make sure it's chilled and shocked, you can do that, but it's often not necessary. Desecrate will actually, when it casts around me in a cascade, as you can see, but it does have some sort of like auto aim targeting, so it will often be spawned under mobs and monsters that are around, which is super helpful again because just immediately chilled and shocked. It's crazy. I really hope that I'm correct in that. I like tested it a couple times, just wasn't casting anything, just taking some damage and getting that Desecrate up, and the mobs were chilled and shocked. I saw. Well, chilled, you know, I'm assuming they're shocked because I don't have anything else that would do chilled. But yeah, cast some damage taken, desecrate. You can bump this up a bit, but I wouldn't. You really just want to be spamming those corpses out as much as you can, and so you have to keep that as low as it can. And this is the lowest level because if you level it again, it'll go to 40, and then this gem can only support skill gems level 38 or lower. Whatever. So Scroll's Burl doesn't work unless you are spending mana. I tried it with Eldritch Battery, and you know you are spending energy shield instead of mana. So I was forced out of it, but it actually opened up the build in a way where I can, you know, use Essence Glutton more properly and, you know, really get all of it. Spirit Offering, Discipline. I am using Discipline just because the build is a little bit squishy. It's kind of like hybrid right now in terms of defenses. The chest piece is, you know, completely... I might go full Mind Over Matter, try and 6-link a Cloak of Defiance or something. I bought Skuld's Brittle for like 10 chaos. And this was like the third day of the league. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, you know. You don't need it, but it definitely helps to sort of, you know, move everything along in terms of generating the corpses without really having to worry about totems, self-cast, whatever else. Other ways you can do it. The 6-link I went over. Shield charge, faster attacks, fortify, and carrying golem. So this is a minion build, quote unquote. I'm only using this guy. Basically just because lore. I don't even like he's just cool. It's just cool to have that little skull buddy. You could really throw this in a 3-link, but he is affected by both the faster attacks and the fortify, I believe. So he just kind of sticks around. He's sometimes he dies. So it is, you know, it's sad, you know, rest in peace, little man. But you can bring him back. I don't know if he pulls aggro as well as I think he is, but the gears, I'm just using Ember Weight because it dropped, and it's like, try it out, why not? A little bit of fire damage and cast speed, and the additional ignite, which is probably proccing a lot. I don't know if it's actually good. You know, it's definitely not like necessary for the build. You just fill it out with res. You know, I just res, little bit of res. My gear is not amazing. The bubonic trail is cool. Didn't realize that one socket ones are just 1 chaos. Basically, and so that movement speed, that flat life, and all the automated corpse consumption, that means we're consuming corpses without even casting, which is really nice. It's super cool to be able to always be ramping up as you're walking through a map. You know, it's just automating so much of this corpse generation and consumption is so crucial to keeping the build like up on that level. Let's keep going. I don't want it to be too long. You do need to use... I use Shield Charge and Flame Dash until Shield Charge can go over gaps. I mean, Flame Dash, you know, it's just always kind of there. Pretty solid. I mean, you saw in the map, the movement was pretty smooth, I think. And just, again, the unearth on my left click, you know, that I can hold on left click, and then you press shift and do just the one over there. What else? I guess the Herald of Thunder I should go into. So I'm using Herald of Thunder, Curse on Hit for Poacher's Mark just to get me Frenzy Charges. I probably will eventually swap out this Jewel for an Overcharged. I kind of just like, it's like a nice spot on the tree. I'm going to get an Intuitive Leap and just bop and get that right there. Probably not worth it to do the oils for it. Again, looking forward with the build, I think we can save a lot of points if we get Spiritual Aid, but like good luck getting that golden oil or whatever. We'll see how far we can get. Let's see. Spirit Offering, Herald of Ash, might switch over to Anger. I think I've really covered everything. Flask of Adrenaline. We got warding on the Surgeons, on the Silver Flask. This can be swapped out for a more defensive Flask. I'm just using it right now because I was kind of like struggling with Flask. I was using all my alts, rolling them. And its Zeri's Promise is just a bunch of extra damage, you know, it's always nice. Staunching. I found it pretty hard with all the new Flask modifiers to actually roll the Staunching Flask. I kept dying to bleed, but with my regen, actually, I was out regenning a lot of the bleed. But anyway, yeah, the build is fun. It looks like there's going to be a lot of stuff. I might not actually end up speccing this Poet's Pen, but I might. I kind of just want to try it, you know. The Necromancer, as it exists now, is so interesting, and I'm glad that I was able to actually make like a build that, you know, stretches out into a different way. Obviously, everybody's going for minion stuff, and we kind of ignore this part of the tree that, you know, deals specifically with minions. Commander of Darkness is probably better on like a standard minion build, but we're all about corpses, baby. and it's so cool and strong, and I can't wait to push it further. You know, it's Volatile Dead. I should mention the AI is a little bit wonky. Maybe they're gonna fix it. I hope they do. This build doesn't really matter because we have so many volatiles, and we also have Incinerate as a damage skill for us. But anyway, thanks for watching the vid. If you have any questions, let me know. I probably am going to make a separate video just kind of gushing about Blight. Blight is so far beyond what I expected. I was kind of like cautiously optimistic about how it was going to end up being, but it's so cool. It's really like it feels like that level of League where like, you know, it's ambitious in the same way that like Synthesis was, but the execution of it, you know, if you have a computer that can run the blighted maps and things like that, it's pretty cool. But anyway, yeah, thanks again for watching. Hit me up on the Twitch, yikes, or Twitter, or, you know, anything like that, all the social media stuff. If you have any questions, I'm probably going to be streaming the next couple of days, really pushing this into red map, seeing how far it can go. And yeah, I'll see you later.